Hello, everybody. Hello, fellow humans. Waiting for people to get into the chat here. When you come on, tell me if you can hear me through these headphones, okay? Just let me know. I don't think there's any problem, but I just want to make sure that it's 100% good because it's a backup pair. Welcome, 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 welcome. How's everybody doing? This is probably not the best time to stream, but we can't hear you. You can't hear me, or you can't hear me. Are you just messing with me? Everything's good? Give a thumbs up if you can hear. Okay, cool. Oh, okay, I misread. I'm bad. My bad. So the pic behind me is of Kali, who is a very important figure. Actually, for me personally, to be honest. So, folks, I'm going to actually be catching a plane in a little bit, and I'll be fairly off the grid until no, TMBS is off next week, but we're premiering a brand new interview with Adolph Reed Jr. And patrons are going to get Sunday shows this Sunday with Matt Karp and next Sunday with Aaron Bastani. And there'll be tons of new clips going out, on the YouTube channel. And David and I will jump on, thank you, man, to do a few Nevada-based streams. But I wanted to jump on and just do this one before I took off because I'm really going to be not 100% off, but really mostly off, trying to really rest up and have a proper vacation, which I really believe every human being should be having lots of vacations and rest. It actually is really important. Our bodies are actually not designed to work like iPhone capitalism. And that's something we all need to think about and act on and also consider when some robber baron oligarch like Mike Bloomberg says that the path to success is not using the bathroom or eating lunch. It's actually this whole work dynamic is fascinating between the amount of people that are excluded from the workforce, the surplus labor population whose talents and value and capacity we're wasting in capitalism. Then there's people who are on the most highly repressed end of exploitation, people working at Amazon warehouses, at Walmart, at fast food chains who are viciously underpaid, they're exploited, they're brutalized, they live in these incredibly cramped surveillance systems, and are overworked and underpaid, and it's brutal. And then on the flip, and obviously that would also apply to Uber drivers and just most people that make up the economy. And then on the other hand, you have people who are privileged in the sense that they're still exploited, because remember, exploitation in a Marxist sense is a technical term that just means you're working and your surplus value you're creating is getting sucked up by a capitalist. But you are, still incredibly overworked, over physically burdened. As an example, if you're say a relatively highly compensated attorney or engineer at Google or something like that. So at any rate, with that riff said, I would like everybody, please go to patreon.com/TMBS and become a patron. That's really important. Our baseline goal we're working towards is 6,000 patrons as the base for everything we're planning on doing as we expand out with books and other projects and offerings and increase salaries and work towards our own space and stuff like that. And it's a huge win for folks because they get a massive amount of extra, absolutely unique and unparalleled content. And just go to patreon.com/TMBS and much appreciated. And please hit us with super chats. So, in addition to the super chats, I also want to say that, of course, come see us, Austin, April 3rd, with Anna Kasparian and Abby Martin at the North Door in Austin, Texas. So, Chris Matthews, has been on a tear, and I thank him for that because I miss doing that impression. And I caught him with Michael Moore the other day on MSNBC, where what I loved was that if you actually go out on national television, and by the way, keep saying, he always goes, Denmark, Denmark, in this like very bizarre impersonation of Chris Matthews, which almost is starting to sound like a little weird, like he's almost going to be like Bernie Sanders, Denmark, pound of flesh, Shylock, Jew, Torah, Venezuela, Torah, Jew. And so Michael Moore was on, and you got to hit me with these super chats if you want to keep the impression coming. This is an exhausting impression. So Michael Moore was on, and Chris Matthews was like, basically, could you imagine if you said on national television that I might have been killed in Central Park if Castro won, and Bernie or people like Bernie would be cheering. I don't like that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. Instead of coming out and being like, you know what, I'm sorry, obviously, I was completely out of my fucking mind and it was embarrassing, or even chuckling when Michael Moore says, by the way, dude, nobody's going to hurt you. Don't worry. Bernie supporters are not going to take you to Central Park. That's what Michael Moore said. And Chris Matthews just like, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah. It's a really funny joke. That's great. I'm not going to be taken to Central Park. But look, any of you crazy, demented people are welcome on anytime. And then Chris Matthews crushed it by saying, Tina Turner is welcome anytime on the show. I would love to hear from Tina Turner and all of the other people that want a Denmark Jew system. How do you combat the narrative that raising minimum wage will raise the price of things like goods and services or rent for workers? Also, more Matthews. Well, you show people the studies and talk about the offsets. Should we let Soledad's horse live after Bernie's win? Look, never harm animals. Chris Matthews on what Bobby Kennedy would think of Bernie. Well, Bobby Kennedy, people forget about Bobby Kennedy. I remember one time in 1971, I was sitting in a bar. I was in Hoboken, and this was old Hoboken, where they didn't allow artists or black people. Now, people don't like to hear that, but it was old Hoboken. And it was old Hoboken, and there was a lot of police, and there were no artists. And there were no, frankly, black people. But they respected MLK. And I walked in, and I was talking to a guy who had been a uniformed patrolman. He retired in 1965, and he loved Bobby Kennedy. He loved Ed Muskie, and he also really admired Franco in Spain. And I know a lot of people don't like that. They'll say Franco was a fascist. They don't like that. They get offended. But he admired him, and it was a Catholic thing, and he admired Bobby Kennedy. Now, I think that guy died in 1973, but I can promise you he wouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders. He wouldn't want to be killed in Central Park. Jeez. I have empathy for Chris Matthews, man. It's exhausting to do that. What would you think of Tammy Baldwin as Sanders VP? Decent progressive. We need to win Wisconsin. Honestly, her ag record, and I think Bernie actually really needs to center agriculture issues and protecting family farms and attacking these horrifying conglomerates like Cargill. Amy Klobuchar is their favorite senator. So Tammy Baldwin has sponsored some very bad stuff in that area. And I agree with you. Besides that, she's very admirable. But that's a big no from me. What does Chris Matthews think of Parasite? Well, it's a Korean movie. And we always think of, with the Koreans, we think of martial arts and sci-fi. And a lot of people, including people, brown bag lunch guys in Philly, they like Jackie Chan. And you're going to say, Jackie Chan wasn't Korean. But in a certain sense, they all fought the Korean War. They all have that memory. And I think what you see at Parasite is really a subliminal call to kill me in Prospect Park. And I'll tell you what, I don't like it. I think the Bernie Sanders campaign likes it. I think they like non-sci-fi Korean movies. But a lot of common Americans don't. And I got to tell you, I'm very scared about Parasite. I'm very scared. This isn't the Charlton Heston days. You used to be able to go to the academy and you could say, there's Clint Eastwood, and all of a sudden we're gonna, maybe we'll send a shout out to, the chief at AIM or whatever. I actually used to have an AIM button in 1971 until I got punched in the face by my brother-in-law. But Parasite, I don't like it. I don't like Parasite. Any other, as I sip tea here to recover. I don't like Parasite at all. Any other requests for any topics you would like Matthews to hit out on before I talk a little bit about Nevada and Bloomberg? I thought it was very scary that they selected Parasite. Have you ever seen, what I love is I love Jackie Chan. He was a great guy, and there was a certain Americanness in the movies that he did with Chris Tucker. Pamela, thank you so much. Rush Hour 3 spoke to the quintessential American experience in a way that I don't think we've seen since Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan passed out together drinking in the Oval Office. If you want an impression, you got to do a super chat. Chris Matthews on a Bloomberg Romney Dem ticket. What you have with Mitt Romney is it's straight from central casting. And Mike Bloomberg, he's the banker guy. He's the other type of Denmark. He's uncut gems. He's the hustle. He's the guy who wants to get things done. Maybe you owe him money. Maybe he's a little bit of an SOB, but he always takes the bets in correctly. He's not going to tell you, if you bet, you said, I want Dallas and I want this spread and, this is going to happen in the fourth quarter. He's not going to lie about it. He's going to pay out. And I think there's a lot of respect, for that kind of uncut gems energy. And then, just actual clean air, central casting America. And that's Mitt Romney. And if you go out and you listen, I remember I met this guy once. He worked as a security guard at Madison Avenue. And he was also, a member of a bike gang. And I remember at one point, this was in 1971, he said, I want a fair shot for the working man, but people aren't going to like this, but George McGovern's a homo. And, when he said that, I realized that even though that guy probably died 37 years ago, he would vote for Bernie Sanders. So I'm very scared. Hey, Michael, what are your thoughts about inviting Maximilian Alvarez on the show? Thought you guys did well in the Iowa panel. Yeah, Max is a great guy, and I believe actually in the coming months we'll be doing each other's shows for sure. Something like that is in the works. Could we get a libertarian Gandhi impression? The problem is that there are so many people that hate freedom. I have to work with that immoral Bernie on food stamps. There's nothing that I love more than the idea of Mike Bloomberg getting taxed for all of his hard work. And I won't say this on the record, but it takes a lot of work to make a company. You're not going. He said it himself. You're not going to the bathroom. You're not eating. And then the idea of redirecting that to some kid who's probably out playing fantasy football. I mean, frankly, the idea just turns me on. Chris Matthews regrettably defending Bloomberg's racism. The real question in this race between Mike Bloomberg and Donald Trump is Manhattan racism versus Queens racism. Okay? And, I've always been, there's Philly racism. That's a whole other thing. There's Tip O'Neill liking basketball, but also, frankly, saying jokes that a lot of people on Twitter wouldn't like today. But ultimately, what you have in Mike Bloomberg is he voted for Obama. And at what point does voting for Obama cancel everything else out? Some of us are sick of it. If you voted for Obama, that should be it. Right-wing Mandela on Bloomberg, please. Well, the new version of right-wing Mandela is that he's an aggrieved Warren supporter. So it would be like, while I deplore in every way, shape, and form Mike Bloomberg's history of supporting redlining, Wall Street, racism, and every other facet of all of the problems that we have in American society, I cannot help but notice that several Bernie bros have tweeted out memes that have made fun of Elizabeth Warren, which of course is literal violence. So it is with some regret that I say I am forced to vote for Mike Bloomberg because of the Twitter activity coming from the Bernie bros. This is what we must do moving forward. That's the new Nelson Mandela. That was literal violence. I quit the ANC after Walter Sensulu criticized me at a meeting because that was literal violence. I realized that even though we all oppose apartheid, that the bros in the African National Congress were really the same thing fundamentally as the apartheid regime. What's your all-time favorite impression to do? I have no idea. I have no clue about it. It always fluctuates. Matthews announcing his entry in the 2020 race. We need somebody who's good on television because people love television. And, frankly, I've been on television. Love Bernie on BDS and the 2 states on Al Jazeera. Need to share that around. Awesome. I'm sorry if I missed. Sorry I missed your super chat. Tell me what it was. Real quick, guys. We all know what it is. Thank you. It's either Bernie Sanders or Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg is formally subverting and ending democracy through this process. Anybody who supports Mike Bloomberg has no credibility to talk about anything ever. And a Mike Bloomberg-Donald Trump race means that we're formally graduating from democracy and formalizing plutocracy. Nevada's is important as hell. And the same message as always. Look, this is what's always annoyed me about some of the posturing left stuff with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is to the left and threatens Capitol. And the evidence of that is that Capitol is threatened as hell, which is why they're trying to destroy him and, most importantly, destroying the people that make up the movement. So don't buy into the hype. Don't believe the narratives. There's going to be a ton of dirty shit and lies and dishonesty and fake ops coming and that are already there. You got to ignore them. You got to knock on doors, canvass, contribute if you can. And we must win. Ironically, this is what we need in terms of social justice and economic justice. But, funnily enough, for all of the kind of resistance crowd, this is actually about literally saving democracy. Got any Boris Johnson impression in the works? Maybe. That's actually a very hard impression. And I will confess, I think I used to do a respectable Tony Blair, but the British impressions are actually kind of difficult for me. So it is really important to not indulge any people's bullshit. Be respectful to your peers. Don't indulge media psychos' fake narratives. The culinary union game had nothing to do with people on Twitter. It's all about power. It's about networks. It's about money. Mike Bloomberg co-opting and paying off so many people in this process and hiring so many people. That is the proof of what really drives things. Alternative universe socialist Matthews impressions. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what an angle on that would be. You ever think about Thomas Sankara? Thomas Sankara. That would actually be funny if Chris Matthews. I can't believe Cenk won. He isn't even at MSNBC anymore. It's pathetic. I'm thinking it would have to be Matthews doing the thing he does for Bobby Kennedy and Tip O'Neill, but for it would be like, I remember reading about Thomas Sankara. I actually met Thomas Sankara. I went to Burkina Faso, and he was there, and he was in the fatigues, and, it was just incredible.
it was, it was just, and there was just a certain leadership quality. A lot of people saw it in Che, a lot of people saw it in Thomas Sankara, and of course, Hugo Chavez. But ultimately, if you want a people's revolution, there's no way of getting around charisma.
I instantly believe pretty much everything I just said. James Carville complaining about Bernie. Ain't nobody want to hear that shit. I don't want extra taxes put on my motherfucking Candyland apartment. Yeah, I know I haven't run a campaign in decades and I'm basically just wheeled out to do a ridiculous Cajun self-impression on television. I don't give a fuck. I don't want those goddamn appearances taxed. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Ain't nobody want to hear that shit. All right, guys. Spread the word. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Definitely, first and foremost, become a patron. Patreon.com/TMBS. We got to get to 6,000 patrons. That's our goal. And we see our first 4,000 on the horizon. 6,000 is key. Spread the word in every way, shape, and form. Live show coming up in Austin, April 3rd. And then I'll announce details next week. The following live show, we're coming to Boston. All right, everybody. Yes, thank you. Everybody listen to Tristan. Appreciate you all. Much love.